Okay guys, it's BigSLICK here, and today's chess match is BigSLICK versus Grandmaster Maurice Ashley. Or to be more accurate, it is Maurice Ashley Teaches Chess, a 1997 vintage computer program that was designed for the Windows 95 operating system, and it was an excellent chess program that was for amateur and intermediate players. It was mainly designed to teach the basics of chess and maybe some slightly advanced techniques. So I will step through this match in which I beat the Maurice Ashley Teaches Chess on the first level, which is called the easy level. The computer played reasonably well until I would say about halfway through the match, and then I thought the moves started looking a bit non-standard. I will put a PGN file, I will put a PGN available to you so that you can follow along and plug it into a chess analysis program. I will also give you the comments as we step through each move based upon, I believe it's Stockfish version 6 from the Lucas Chess program. So I opened with E4. The computer responded with E5, a common counter move. I played knight to F3. Maurice Ashley played knight to C6. I then played a bit of a non-standard move, bishop to E2, which, if you're familiar with openings, is the inverted Hungarian opening. A rather uncommon opening, although it does put white in a decent position to play a solid game. It's not popular because there's no threats based upon this opening. It's a reasonably defensive opening. I'm certainly not a chess master by any means. In fact, I've only started playing for about 6 months, and very casually at that. I don't have a lot of extra time to play. So my experience with openings and that is limited. I'm still learning. So you'll have to bear with me if I do make a mistake in analysis or a mistake in commentary. I'll do the best I can at my current stage of learning. Maurice Ashley countered with knight to F6, the two knights defense. Okay, at that point I castled. I felt that that was a nice safe move. The computer played bishop to C5, which immediately puts a threat on the F2 square, which is a very vulnerable square, especially for a castled king. Well, and I guess for a king even in the default position. So the computer went on attack mode pretty quickly, at least I felt so. So on the fifth move, I came up with the two knights defense. At this point, I went with knight to C3, counter D6. When in doubt, move a pawn in the middle. Up till that point, there really was nothing of note in Stockfish 6. It felt that, looking at the analysis here, it thought that the computer's move of knight to F6 was a good move, and it felt this pawn move of D6 was a good move. Everything else was rather neutral. At that point, I played D3, which was considered a good move. Computer responded with bishop to G4, which was considered, I guess, a slightly below average, but still nothing of noteworthy, not an actual negative, just maybe a little below average. I played bishop to g5. That was considered a good move. It had a slam by it. So my thought there was that I was going to attack the knight and also pin the knight to the queen. So at that point the computer played h5, which was a very questionable move. I knew it at the time. Stockfish agreed, rated that a poor move. If anything, it should have attacked my bishop, but to actually, shoot by it made no sense to me. So I played knight to d5, which was considered another very good move that I made. My thought there was I'm getting my knight into a central attacking position that it could leap into attack as a dual attack to fork the rook and the king. Potentially, that was the theory there, but also just to put a lot of pressure into the center of the board. The black knight also could not attack me unless he wanted to lose the queen, so I felt that was a safe square to be at. The computer responded with bishop to b4, which was considered another questionable move. It actually doesn't seem to attack anything. It's just floating out there in the middle. If anything, my knight could pick it off, although it would be an exchange, a bishop for a knight, most likely. So I didn't see the point of that move. Stockfish agreed. I played c3, which was considered another good move, which I was pretty proud of because I had 4 good moves in a row. That put pressure on the black bishop, and also there again put a push towards the center of the board. The reply, the bishop backed up, went to a5. That was actually considered a good move by Stockfish for black. At that point I played queen to a4. That was considered a poor move by me. My thinking on it was that I'm attacking both the bishop and the knight, and also pinning the knight because it can't move, because obviously the king would be in check. So I felt that was a good move. Stockfish disagreed. It viewed that as a 1.32 as a negative. It viewed it as a questionable move. So take that for what it's worth. Computer replied with queen to b8. I thought that was a very questionable move. Stockfish agreed with it. I didn't see the point. Now I will say that I actually wasn't paying great attention at that point. I kind of lost a little bit of focus. I played b4, which was considered a neutral move. I wanted to attack the bishop and basically put the bishop in a position there really wasn't any place to go. He could have backed up one more position, but there again it would have been under attack by my knight. So at that point the black knight took my knight since it was no longer pinning the queen. I did overlook that. That was definitely my bad. So the knight to d5 there, that was actually considered a highly questionable move by Stockfish. It seemed rather natural to me, but Stockfish felt that it was highly questionable. In fact, it was considered a red move, which is very negative, extremely negative. So on the 12th move, we went to d5. Took the knight, and also challenging the other black knight. That was considered an excellent move. So I was happy with that. Bishop took my bishop. Bishop took my knight. At that point, I reply, bishop takes bishop. On those, there again, both of those moves were considered good by me. Now the next move, the pawn thrust to b5, was considered a very strong move by Stockfish. It challenged my queen. I assumed that that was going to come, so I felt I was prepared for it. I simply backed up one. That was considered a questionable move by Stockfish. I had my idea where I was going with this, but it was considered questionable. This move was highly questionable in my opinion. Black moved king to d7. That was just absolutely a red, beyond pathetic move. I don't know any idea why even a poor chess program would have played that move. So then I played pawn takes knight, which also puts king in check. That was considered a excellent move. In fact, that was pretty much outstanding. It was a plus 8.26. So king backs up, trying to see what did that was considered highly questionable. In fact, one of the worst moves that Black made. It was a negative that was almost a 14. So obviously the Stockfish thought that was terrible. At that point, I capture another piece. Pawn takes bishop. That was considered outstanding. That was a plus 14 for me. Computer replies to g6. That was considered a highly questionable move. In fact, that was the second worst move that the computer made according to Stockfish. It was a negative 20.5. So I counter with rook to b1. My thinking here is that I wanted to provide pressure on this b file, attacking this pawn, basically pinning this pawn or else losing the queen. That was my thinking. Stockfish felt that was a poor move. Trying to see where it's at here. That viewed that as a double questionable move of a negative 15.6. That was my thinking. I explained it. I'm sure at my level of development I don't fully understand what was so bad about that move. So the computer replied with pawn thrust to f5. That was considered the worst move that the computer made. That was a negative 22. I responded with bishop to d5. That was considered one of my worst moves, which there again I don't understand necessarily why. My thinking was I wanted to provide a lot of pressure in the center of the board, that this bishop could easily attack all areas of the board in this position and was not actively being threatened by any piece. I thought it was a good spot for my bishop. Stockfish disagreed. So the computer responded with rook to e8, which was considered an excellent move. In fact, one of the best moves that the computer made. At that point, I countered with bishop to f7. My thinking was that I wanted to attack the rook and the pawn, and I'd be happy to exchange my bishop for the rook. but Stockfish there again disagreed, considered that a highly questionable move. That was my thinking. The computer responded with queen to b7. I had the queen completely trapped in here, so the queen was simply not playing. Stockfish actually thought this was a decent move. Apparently it was a neutral move. I don't really know why. I guess simply to get my pawn out of the middle of the board here. But obviously I responded by taking the queen, which also put the king in check. That was considered an excellent move for me. Then the follow-up move, king takes pawn. That seemed to be a neutral move according to Stockfish. So then I replied with a6. That seemed to be a neutral move. I wanted to put the king in check. I knew the pawn was not vulnerable because it's backed up by my queen. So I felt that was a good way to put more pressure. Computer responded by moving the king up. There again appears to be roughly a neutral move. So then I responded with bishop to e3. The idea was to simply put the king in check and keep the king on the run. There again appeared to be a neutral move, neither a positive or a negative from Stockfish. So I came up, the computer replied king to c6. That was apparently along the plus moves. It's in blue here on Stockfish. Doesn't have a slam by it, but we'll just go with that. I responded with bishop takes rook. At this point, the Maurice Ashley only had two legitimate pieces on the board, two rooks. Two rooks can still cause a lot of damage. I felt it was in my best interest to get one of those two major pieces off the board and at the same time put the king in check. Obviously the computer replied by taking the bishop. That was my worst move of the match, it claimed. Take my bishop taking the rook. I can't understand what was so bad about it. It was considered double questionable. I put the king in check. I won the exchange and left the black team with a single piece, a rook. Everything else is pawns and the king. I felt that was a no-brainer. Stockfish obviously felt it was an extremely poor move, but we'll go with it. It felt obviously that rook taking my bishop was a strong move. So the next move I played was queen to b4, which there again was considered a negative move by Stockfish. In fact, a highly negative move. I didn't understand that because I was setting up checkmate. All I had to do was take this pawn and I'm backed up by the rook. So I felt it was a no-brainer. Computer thrusted the f4 pawn to put pressure on my bishop. That was a completely worthless move. I think the king obviously should have tried to retreat, at least in my opinion. At a casual glance here, I don't really see anything that was a better move. I think the king should have retreated. So at that point I played the obvious move, which was checkmate. Queen takes the b5 pawn, and that was checkmate, end of game. So I felt the game went well. Stockfish obviously argued with a lot of my moves, but for a chess program that's almost 20 years old, in fact 19 years old to be exact, the program's dated 1997, I really enjoyed the game. I thought it was a good game for the easy level. Certainly better than some games that I've played, which on the easy level provided absolutely no strategy whatsoever. I felt the computer had a reasonable opening. It had moments of good play without being, you know, very difficult. I thought it was well adjusted if you were, you know, making a reasonable comment about it. So I enjoyed it. The game was timed. When you flip through the move list afterwards, it no longer shows how long the game took. This was a pretty quick game. I don't think I had about 15-16 minutes worth of moves. Obviously the computer moved pretty fast. It probably only had a couple minutes worth of moves, maybe even less than that, because it moved quick. So thanks for watching. I highly recommend the Maurice Ashley Teaches Chess program. Easily available at Amazon and eBay and Surplus. You shouldn't have to pay $10 for it. It should be $10 or less. For that price, I think it's worth it. If you had to pay more for it, then you should probably look elsewhere. But can't go wrong with it. You're not going to become a grandmaster with it. But if you want something that's interactive and actually will teach you to visually learn the board and the pieces and basic strategy, you can't go wrong here. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye.